As Christians, we are called to be good stewards of the earth and to care for God's creation. However, the concept of global warming has been hijacked by some to promote a radical environmental agenda that is often at odds with Christian values. This agenda, which is rooted in a secular and humanistic worldview, seeks to undermine the dignity and worth of human life, while elevating the natural world to a position of idolatrous reverence. In order to fight back against this fake global warming agenda, Christians must first understand the underlying ideology that drives it. At its core, the global warming agenda is rooted in a pagan and anti-human worldview that sees mankind as a plague on the earth, rather than as the pinnacle of God's creation. This worldview is often accompanied by a utopian vision of a world without humans, or at least a world in which humans are drastically reduced in number and influence. This is in stark contrast to the Christian worldview, which sees humans as created in the image of God and endowed with inhuman dignity and worth. To combat this agenda, Christians must first educate themselves on the issue of global warming and the scientific evidence that surrounds it. While it is true that the Earth's climate is changing, the idea that this change is primarily driven by human activity is not supported by the scientific evidence. In fact, many scientists believe that climate change is a natural phenomenon that has been occurring for thousands of years, and that human activity plays only a minor role in it. Christians must also be aware of the ways in which the global warming agenda is being used to promote a radical social and economic agenda. This agenda includes policies such as population control, wealth redistribution, and the suppression of individual freedoms. These policies are often packaged as necessary measures to combat climate change, but in reality, they are designed to advance a secular and humanistic worldview that is hostile to Christian values. In addition to educating themselves, Christians must also take action to resist the global warming agenda. This can include supporting organizations and politicians that oppose radical environmental policies, as well as engaging in public discourse and debate on the issue. Christians must also be willing to challenge the dominant narrative on global warming, even if it means facing opposition and ridicule from the secular elite. Another way that Christians can fight back against the global warming agenda is by promoting a biblical worldview of creation care. This involves recognizing that the earth is a precious gift from God, and that we have a responsibility to care for it in a way that honors Him. However, this does not mean that we must adopt a radical environmental agenda that seeks to elevate the natural world above human needs and concerns. Rather, we must seek to find a balance between caring for the earth and promoting human flourishing. Finally, Christians must recognize that the global warming agenda is not just a scientific or political issue, but a spiritual one. It represents a fundamental clash between two worldviews, one that sees the earth as a sacred and autonomous system that must be worshipped and preserved at all costs, and another that sees the earth as a creation of God that is subject to His sovereignty and wisdom. As Christians, we must be mindful of the spiritual dimensions of this issue and seek to promote a biblical worldview that honors God and His creation. In conclusion, the global warming agenda is a complex and multifaceted issue that requires a nuanced and thoughtful response from Christians. By educating themselves on the issue, resisting radical environmental policies, promoting a biblical worldview of creation care, and recognizing the spiritual dimensions of the issue, Christians can effectively fight back against the fake global warming agenda and promote a more balanced and biblical approach to caring for the earth. Ultimately, this will require a deep commitment to biblical truth and a willingness to challenge the dominant narrative on global warming, even in the face of opposition and ridicule.